Alright, what's up? So these are the new AirPods Pro Generation 3, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't see much of a reason to upgrade to these if you already have the AirPods Pro 2. However, if you're rocking something like the original AirPods Pro, this might be the move. So I actually bought the AirPods Pro 2nd generation about 6 months ago, and if you watched my review, you will know that I had some issues with those pairs. Oftentimes, noise cancellation would just kind of glitch out and audio would sort of weirdly flip between each earbud. But I am very happy to say that I have not had any of these issues at all with the 3rd generation of AirPods Pro. Now, as far as design goes, you can see that these AirPods look very similar to the last generation. And you know, while I was watching the event, I did think that these looked identical to the last AirPods Pro, but no, actually in person they do look fairly different. And as you can tell, the earbuds themselves are shaped a bit differently, I guess you could say. And the reason they look like they're a bit more tilted in is because they now sort of point directly into your ear canal. And Apple did this to make the audio sound much kind of richer. Apple also made a big deal about how their ear tips are now foam infused. And they did this because, in theory, having a foam infused ear tip will improve the passive noise cancellation and help it fit better in your ears. And there's a whole list of benefits to that. But as far as I can tell, it's a fairly small difference. You don't really notice them in your ears, although they do feel a little bit firmer, I guess, in your hands. Outside of that, though, ear tips are just fine. No complaints there. I would like to note, though, that because they have been redesigned, you actually do need to put them in your ear a little bit differently in order to keep them snug. And I am aware that they changed this design to make it fit better in most people's ears. But to be honest, even though I sort of played with different ear tip sizes, I adjusted the fit, I did all these things, they don't fit in my ears quite as nicely as the last AirPods Pro did. So I'm curious to see if you have had an issue like that, if you happen to pick one of these up. Now, since of course the earbuds did change, the case also changed as well, although not like very much. But you can tell that the case is a little bit wider as well as a little bit taller. But to be honest, I really have not noticed much of a difference at all. They did also take away the pairing button from the back and they placed the status light under the case. So the reason they did that was to improve the water resistance of the case. And so since that button is gone, if you do want to put these in pairing mode or reset them, you just open the lid and double tap the front just like that. Now, a change that I am very thankful for is actually an even bigger improvement into battery life with these, because you will now see about 8 hours in noise cancellation, which is up from the 6 hours of the last AirPods Pro. And by the way, that's like up from 4 hours of the original AirPods Pro, so a large leap. Now, if you happen to see the Powerbeats Pro 2, you'll remember that they added a heart rate monitor to those earbuds. And I'm happy to say that Apple has brought the same heart rate monitor technology, or at least as far as I'm aware, the same technology to these earbuds as well, so they can also track your heart rate. Now, during my testing in different workouts, I found that the heart rate would be within a few beats per minute of my Garmin watch, and although I don't have a chest heart rate strap to fully test these, I've seen online, from other reviewers that they seem to be fairly accurate. Now, like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, the ear tips are now foam, and that is with silicone on the outside. Now, the idea is that you get the benefits of a foam ear tip. Like, for example, for some people, it might sit in your ear better. Of course, it naturally helps with passive noise cancellation because it creates that better seal. But you can also clean the ear tips much easier than if it were to be a type of foam on the outside. Have I noticed a difference? Not really. They still fit in my ears fine, and they are still quite comfortable, of course, although they do feel slightly stiffer to the touch, if that matters. Now, Apple has also worked to make sure these earbuds fit in more people's ears, and so they now have 5 additional ear tip sizes, with the new one being the extra small size. So in general, why would Apple go through all the trouble of redesigning the AirPods? Well, they claim that through this bigger vent and of course some reworked internals, The new AirPods have a wider soundstage plus the addition of some extra bass. Now, the soundstage is actually noticeable in my opinion, and if you aren't familiar with that term, it is essentially how wide the sound feels. And so, if you want to listen to music to get a good idea of that, I would listen to classical music or just music with a lot of instruments playing at once, because the wider the soundstage, the more separation you'll kind of be able to pick out between these different levels of instruments. And as far as bass is concerned, they sound pretty good. In some situations, it can be a bit strong, which I know people weren't the biggest fans of, but to be honest, I'm fine with it. I wouldn't try correcting audio in these because they are most definitely not neutral, but nonetheless, they are still very enjoyable to listen to. And I might get a little bit of hate for this, but honestly, in my opinion, they sound very similar to the AirPods Pro 2, and so it doesn't make much of a difference for myself. Now, of course, Apple claims that these new AirPods have another 2x improvement in noise cancellation. To be honest, in my experience, I wouldn't say that these are 2 times better, but I definitely did notice for sure a welcome difference. And I know that anybody who purchases these will 100% enjoy them. So lastly, I just want to share my overall thoughts with these AirPods. So, I mean, AirPods are great. They've always been great. So why would you buy these right now? Well, if you're coming from, say, an older set of AirPods Pro, like the original set, or even older AirPods than that, you will for sure notice a difference. These are the greatest AirPods Apple's ever made, and you will be seeing at least a 4x improvement in noise cancellation. And ideally, they'll fit in your ears fairly well because of the way they've been designed. And of course, these will be updated for a little while. You get some nice software improvements, and I mean, honestly, the microphones in here as well sound solid in my opinion. I think they sound really good for especially being wireless. But if you have the second generation of AirPods Pro, especially the USB-C version, I don't really think this upgrade is that necessary. If you plan to upgrade for live translation specifically, that feature has already been brought to the original AirPods Pro 2. So overall, the AirPods Pro 3rd generation are an incredible, well-rounded device, and like I just said, the best Bluetooth earbud, headphone, whatever you want to call it, that Apple has ever made. And although I haven't tried a ton of other ones, I mean, based off what I've heard at least, these are pretty up there just in general as being some of the best wireless earbuds ever. Now, a lot of small upgrades add up over time, right? You aren't going from AirPods Pro 2 with USB-C to these guys. Unless you are, of course, but the upgrades just stack up over time. And so if you're coming from older AirPods, I can see these being amazing. But ultimately, if you buy these, you're going to be happy. They work great. They sound great. They're super convenient, especially if you are in that Apple ecosystem. But if you're happy with your AirPods Pro, especially the AirPods Pro 2, I would probably wait until the AirPods Pro 4 come out because those might have some more upgrades that would be worth kind of upgrading to. But hey, that's been it. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell as it helps me out a ton. And I will see you guys in the next one. So yeah, bye guys.